Hey guys, Trey here. Wanted to do another forecasting video today. Haven't done one in a while here on this channel, but figured now is about as good a time as any just before the season is going to get going to kind of freshen up our skills on severe weather forecasting. Today we've got a nice event for it. We've got a slight risk from northeast Texas through Arkansas into the Tennessee, northern Mississippi area, surrounded by a marginal risk outside of that. 5% tornado surrounded by a 2% with a wind threat, damaging wind threat as well, and some hail threat, but that will be tempered a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Have not been paying a lot of attention to this setup, so kind of going into this kind of fresh without having any background knowledge of the setup, a couple days in advance. Haven't really been looking at this. Been busy with other things, and I'm not chasing today, so this will be kind of a nice refresher of kind of going in blind to a setup and trying to pick out a target to chase. So let's start with the satellite view here. This is a visible satellite. We see the region pretty much socked in clouds here. We are seeing some breaks in the clouds here early over southeast Oklahoma, northeast Texas, into southern Missouri, and some clearing out here as well in Mississippi, Alabama, eastern Louisiana. So good amount of clearing to get some sunshine through, and we actually have some storms that are ongoing. We had a tornado warning earlier today in Kentucky. You can see some storms out here just to the northwest of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If we go up here to the Kentucky area, this band of storms actually produced a tornado warning earlier this morning. But very heavy rain here. There's a flash flood warning in effect here in southern Kentucky, far northwestern Tennessee. And some showers here ongoing through the region as well. Some spotty showers and storms so far across Arkansas and southeast Oklahoma. So let's look at our surface map. This is going to be an event that is driven a lot by a surface cold front. We can see that pretty clearly here. Actually, on the mesonet, the Oklahoma mesonet here, we can really see where that cold front is. We have northerly, northwesterly winds that meet fairly weak southerly or southwesterly winds right here through southeastern Oklahoma. Our cold front is going to be right in there. And you can see temperatures very cool in the 40s and low 50s behind that. Very warm air mass, mid 60s to even, there's a 70 reading here in southeast Oklahoma, with dew points in the mid 60s as well. Very strong warm advection over the last day or so across this region. We have 60s dew points pretty much over a broad swath to the south of this cold front, all the way up into Kentucky. See 64, 63, or 61, 64, 63 dew points right there into western Kentucky. So our warm sector characterized by very moist dew points. Somewhat veered low-level flow at this point, a little bit southwesterly, a little bit more southerly here in the southern part of the risk area, the western part of the risk area down here in northeast Texas, and kind of veers as you go to the northeast. So that'll be something to keep in mind. And let's look at this is the Mesoanalysis from the SPC, and we see kind of a nice reflection of where the cold front is as well on this surface pressure map. Here's our surface low located up here in the Great Lakes region with a trailing cold front. We see this pressure tongue out here extending down to the southwest from that low. Let's look at our upper air maps here. This is our upper level flow at 500 millibars. We see pretty much this trough back here centered over Arizona, with just broad southwesterly flow here across much of the central and eastern United States. Not really seeing a well-defined trough that's going to be really focusing. Yeah, there it goes. Really focusing. We talk about, as far as just theory goes, we like to see the exit region of a trough. We kind of pinpoint those as our main region for severe weather, and where the parameters, wind shear, vorticity is maximized, the spin in the atmosphere is maximized. Not really seeing that here. We just have kind of this broad southwesterly flow across the region. Let's go down to 700 millibars, see if we see any short waves, and we really don't. We have the wave back here, maybe a little bit of a semblance of one here in about just western and central Texas, likely firing off that batch of storms we saw going on to the northwest of the Dallas region right now. That could be a factor here as it moves off to the east later on in the day. And if we move this forward just a couple hours, we don't really see much in the way of shortwave trough, of shortwaves in the flow, really any notable shortwaves in the flow. So this is going to be driven a lot by this cold front, and automatically that makes me think that this is going to be more of a linear type event just by that. We'll take a look at some other products here in a second that will kind of confirm our mode concerns. This is the 850 map. Something's going a little haywire with it. Maybe if we zoom in here, it might get back. Yeah, here's our 850 millibar map. We see very strong 850 millibar flow, very strong low-level jet here associated with that surface low up to in the northern part of the country. See 45, 50, 55 knots of southwesterly flow here across the region. But it is southwesterly flow, and oftentimes with our tornado events, we like to see, with backed surface winds, we like to see that low-level jet really stay backed as well. And that just doesn't seem to be the case here. So we have broad southwesterly flow aloft, southwesterly flow at 850 millibars, and our surface flow was out of the west-southwest as well. So shear looks to be maybe fairly unidirectional here, maybe with the exception of the low levels. We see a little bit of turning if we look at our winds once again. Definitely more southerly here across the warm sector, veering to westerly as we go up to 500 millibars, almost west-southwesterly here. So definitely a little bit of turning in the low levels, but mainly unidirectional above that, I think. And if we look at our bulk shear vectors, our bulk shear vectors are going to be very much west-southwesterly as well. And if we recall the orientation of the cold front, we can see the northwesterly winds there, these southwesterly or southerly winds to the south of it. Our cold front is oriented very much sort of west-southwest to north to east-northeast. So our bulk shear vectors here are definitely very parallel to our initiating boundary, which is the cold front. And anytime you have that, where your bulk shear vectors, your overall shear, and your initiating boundary are oriented parallel to each other, that generally signifies a more linear, messier mode, because updrafts are not able to separate from each other very well in basic terms, and you get the precipitation region of initially discrete storms to kind of flow into the sort of region of interest as far as tornadic activity goes in supercells that are along the line as well. And you get just kind of this line of storms that forms. And any chance of discrete storms is very minimal. So that's a first major concern we see from today's setup, is we're looking at kind of a very much a sort of linear mode, since our main forcing mechanism is going to be this cold front, and the fact that our bulk shear vectors are very much parallel to our cold front. Let's take a look at some soundings, though, to kind of diagnose what's going on across the region. Here's the 12Z Oklahoma City or Norman sounding, and you can see at this point the cold front had passed us by, so we have northwesterly winds here at the surface, so this is definitely behind the cold front. But let's go down to Dallas, where we see that we are still south of the cold front, southerly winds here, veering, not as much veering in the low levels here, so we don't get quite as robust of a hodograph as maybe we might see out to the east and northeast of this area. We do have a little bit of sort of this pocket of dry, warmer air here aloft, maybe some semblance of an elevated mixed layer that's been brought east by our upper level southwesterly or west southwesterly flow. From the desert southwest, we have sort of this semblance of an elevated mixed layer here, which likely will suppress convection for a while, at least meaningful convection, until the cold front gets there, and we can break this inversion here. And let's go farther east here to Shreveport, and we see already a much more robust hodograph here. So we have definitely a lot more veering in the lowest levels here. We see our winds are actually a little bit more backed here at Shreveport at 12Z, which is 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. Veering quickly to west-southwest, 45 knots here at 850. So we're in our very strong low-level jet here, very veered low-level jet. But that creates a very significantly curved hodograph here in the low levels. We do see maybe some small semblance of the EML here, this sort of drier, warmer layer here, which will be good in suppressing convection. However, this probably won't get suppressed until that cold front makes it, which is not that far away. So by late morning, early afternoon, we'll probably see storms getting going along that cold front, as that forcing from the cold front can blast through that sort of warmer layer and cap on the atmosphere. Let's go to Little Rock here. Pretty much the same story, although not nearly as much of a capped layer here. We're not seeing much SIN at all, at least mixed layer SIN. If we take the parcel from the surface, our surface-based parcel does have quite a bit of SIN, but our mixed layer parcel very much actually ready to be lifted and sort of become a storm. There's not that much SIN left here, which also might not bode well for a discrete mode. We've already established the sort of linear mode here. That's Springfield. Let's go to Tennessee. This is Nashville. Very favorable hodograph here. We see lots of curvature in the lowest kilometer or so, once again. Fairly unidirectional above that, though, as we were talking about. Our winds veer pretty quickly above about 850 millibars. They're pretty much unidirectional, but they veer very quickly right above the surface. So what we were expecting here from our wind profiles, very unidirectional aloft, lot of curvature here down below, very saturated profile. So likely this station at 12Z was saturated in clouds, and again, that was Nashville, so that's kind of close to that complex of storms we just looked at. So very much saturated here. Not exceptional as far as a classic sort of, tornado sounding, tornadic supercell sounding. We do have a couple of these little inversions here, but not a whole lot of eye candy with this sounding besides the hodograph. Let's go to Jackson one last time. We see definite semblance of an EML, more so out here in the southern part of the risk area. This is Jackson. We see that EML here, dry, warm layer aloft. Definitely still some curvature down here in this photograph. Fairly unidirectional overall, though. But we do have, for sure, adequate curvature in the lowest levels for a tornado threat with these storms. So what I'm seeing right now is pretty much a setup that's going to rely on this cold front to get storms going. We do have a little bit of an EML the farther west and south you go. That's really not so the farther north you go in this, north and northeast you go in the risk area. And let's look at one more parameter here, our vorticity and 3 Cape. So pretty unstable low levels here. This is again 0 to 3 kilometer Cape, shows us the instability in the lowest 3 kilometers of the atmosphere. That higher 3 Cape values increase the sort of stretching potential and the ability for vortex tubes that sort of horizontal convective rolls to get tilted into the vertical by an updraft. And when this is co-located with vorticity, or low-level spin, which are these blue contours, you have an increased chance that this vorticity will be tilted into the vertical and subsequently become a tornado. So right now we see pretty ample 3-cape along that boundary, really across the entire region. We can see where that cold front is easily. See that concentration of blue contours. That is right along the cold front. So we do have some overlap of this stronger low-level instability with that vorticity along the front. So definitely coupled with the large curvature in the photographs, would definitely see a tornado threat from this setup, although it's probably going to be in the form of embedded vortices within a squall line. So, yeah, definitely seems like a sort of squall line event to me. But the parameter space is there for tornadoes within the line. Let's take a look at some models now, just some convective allowing models, just to get kind of a picture of what we're going to be looking at here. Sort of some guesses at what we're going to be looking at. So this is the HRRR model. It has those storms in Kentucky fairly well analyzed here. It is missing this stuff in North Texas though. So that is something to keep in mind there. And we see right about midday, we get storms to start firing to the north of Dallas along that cold front, and then it kind of fills in through Arkansas into Tennessee now, into northern Mississippi. And we do see some helicity tracks here. These black contours are helicity tracks. That does not mean where a tornado is going to form. It just means where there's a significant updraft rotation. Kind of pinpointing the sort of Arkansas, once these storms get into Arkansas and western Tennessee. However, you can see that this activity quickly grows upscale into a line. That's just a product of our upper level flow, our bulk shear being pretty parallel to the initiating boundary. And then it just is a big old squall line through the night into the southeast. How about the NAM nest? Never been a fan of this model too much, as it always either over-convects or doesn't convect at all. But it'll give us a guess, and you see pretty much the same thing by midday. Storms in southeast Oklahoma, North Texas, into Arkansas. Quick upscale growth into a line, so this looks like it's going to be a messy sort of event from the get-go. And any tornado threat will be in the form of embedded vortices. And as quick as this cold front is moving, we can see sort of 15 to 20 mile an hour winds to the north of this cold front. Very weak winds to the south. But this cold front is going to continue pretty rapidly to the southeast throughout the day. So any storms that form with a storm motion that is pretty parallel to the boundary, these could get undercut fairly quickly as well. That is another concern I have, that this storm that fires is going to move this way to the northeast or to the east. The front is going to be moving to the southeast, so these storms could get undercut fairly quickly, leading to them becoming elevated and pretty much negating any tornado threat that these storms would have had. So lots of concerns. Definitely not the perfect sort of chaseable setup, if you will, as far as tornadoes go. I do think overall there will be a tornado threat, definitely an embedded tornado threat within this line. No doubt going to be a damaging wind threat as well. But I think the tendency will be for these storms to line out very, very quickly and perhaps become elevated with time as the cold front undercuts them. So here's the Worf ARW model. You can see very messy storm mode once again. And yeah, just not really appealing as far as chaseability goes. Last model, the Nssl Worf model. This is usually a pretty good model as far as storm mode goes, and you can see once again, very quick transition to linear mode. And yeah, so that's that. Once again, slight risk out for northeast Texas into the western half of Tennessee with an accompanying tornado threat, damaging wind threat from the squall line. They are pinpointing some hail here, particularly for a batch of storms that's forecast to occur behind the cold front down in South Texas tonight. We're not going to worry about that too much. But early on in the convective cycle, we could see some hail within the first hour before these storms really grow upscale. But I think the main threats are going to be embedded tornadoes, embedded mesovortices, and damaging wind from the squall line. So if you're chasing today, good luck. I think it might be a tough day as far as storm mode goes, but the photographs definitely indicative of a tornado threat with these storms. If you can find a part of the line where it's maybe a little bit more discreet, you might be able to catch a brief tornado or two out of this line. But thanks for watching. We hopefully will get the severe season to really ramp up here as March and April approach. And yeah, we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.